Dear viewers, it's once again Money and Markets, and today we're paying special attention to a topic that I'm quite sure is quite at the center of business in Uganda and quite close to the hearts of many business people, and that is taxation. And with me is Daisy. She's a tax expert. She's going to walk us through some of the things you need to know as a taxman to really align your relationship well with a taxman, because let's face it, we can't avoid the taxman. So Daisy, for starters, how do you see the SME terrain in Uganda and their relationship with this concept of taxation?
Well, most of the SMEs derail themselves from the concept of tax. They don't consider tax a very important aspect of business when they are starting out. So they defer it, they don't want to endear themselves to it, and they are pretty much just waiting on the taxman to land on them. That's how they relate.
Okay, probably it's maybe because of ignorance. They don't know what they need to have in place to actually make that relationship quite fruitful and peaceful, for lack of a better word. What are some of the things that you think you would advise a businessman, an SME, typically in Uganda, to have in place as a starting point on the journey to prepare their, affairs with the taxman?
Yeah, thank you so much. And first of all, before I go to the advice, even the taxman has not packaged themselves well for an SME person to endear themselves. The collection mechanisms are rough. The entitlement is just over this world. But then what I would advise an SME business to put in place is, first of all, bookkeeping. Keeping proper financial records. Every transaction, try as much as possible, because the tax regime leaves the burden of proof on the taxpayer. So when you are issued with an assessment, when you are into compliance advisory, tax health checks, what will only save a business, a small business, big, medium, whatever, you should have your books in order. When they say, okay, we are disputing the fact that you spent this money, say, but I have proof of expenditure, then your expenses will be allowed. But once you can't prove an expense, it will be added back as a tax liability.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, from your experience, again related to that, what are some of the common mistakes that businesses make, on that journey?
Okay, so most of the businesses employ relatives at the beginning, and as you see, most of the business structure in Uganda is husband, wife. Usually the husband is the director and the wife, and then the shareholders are the children. And then we have something about Africans. We want to bring our families into business. So these people are not professional about the work that should be done. So the bookkeeping is done in a wrong way. I have personally interacted with some fairly medium business, and they were confident, not for us to have a system, but when I went to the postings, they were quite really absurd. So I would advise that they bring in the professional people. If it's a bookkeeper, get a graduate at least, and then get them to be trained by a systems person. And also, we mistake systems installers, accounting systems installers for accountants. They don't know how to create these charts of accounts, so they mess you up. What should have been like an expense, what should have been like an asset, what should have been a capital expenditure is all jumbled up. So it leaves you with no basis to account for your business very well. That is one. Two, assumption that a URA will not find me because I'm operating outside of the tax regime. Some people say, no, me, I don't trade with government, I don't trade with this. But in truth, somehow you get caught, because maybe somebody's going to resign and they go to NSF and say, you've not been filing my taxes. That is going to be a trigger to trigger everything. For example, if NSF starts to ask into your affairs, then payee has to be asked about. When you're at the point of pay, then say, wait a minute, but you're employing somebody. Can we now look at your mainstream business? So I'm just imploring business people to keep their books right, to try and, at the bare minimum, employ the right people to do the job, because business owners are not accountants or tax experts.
I can see you scaring some of the employers, especially people in the informal sector.
Yeah.
If you went among a number of corporates, probably they have a farm worker somewhere, they have a maid at home, and the other day I saw NSF saying all of them have to be supported But again, moving on, there are those who feel that the tax burden in Uganda is a bit of, it's quite heavy. And I've interacted with some business people who think that if you to comply 100%, you can't do business in Uganda. I don't know what you think from your expert vantage point of view.
Yeah, obviously, I feel them. I hear them. It's how it feels. And it's what's coming out, even when I'm interacting with the various businesses. I feel like once you choose to comply, then you become the punching bag for the taxman. I think it should be the approach should be inquiry in nature instead of enforcement. But every time I've interacted with a taxman, all they tell me, for us, we are here to collect. They don't care. Recently, one of my clients was trying to pursue an exemption because according to them, what they needed to do, once the contract they needed to sign required that they are also exempted since their competitors were exempted or they are joint venture people. So, but when we went to this officer and we explained to him, once we don't get this contract, we are going to be forced out of business. He says, no, but me, I am mandated to collect. I don't care. In fact, he reached a point and said, if you close out, another international company will come and take off your business and they'll pay taxes. For us, we don't care. So this other client says, but you need to also be employ some sort of favoritism for the nationals. Because now the space I'm playing in, it's even a shock that I'm a national and playing in that space. So you need to the taxman or to whoever will watch this and their legislators and everything, in everything we are doing, as much as we want to collect, let us now empower the local business and make sure that at least they thrive. Then let us cast the net wider so that other businesses that are not compliant can as well comply with the taxes.
Withholding tax. I know it's one of those elements that many business people are really, really grappling with. And many do not understand it, or some feel if there's a way, they could get off and probably graduate into the space of exemption of that. For starters, just walk us through what does a business need to put in place to actually get on the exemption of withholding? Starting with talking about withholding, what it means. Yes.
First of all, withholding tax, I can break it down in such a manner that URA has anticipated that business people are not going to pay taxes at the end of the day. Of course, everyone doesn't wish to pay taxes.
If they can afford it.
If they can afford it, they would rather avoid and all. But the taxman is saying the country must survive and operate. So when you're doing business, your offerer of a given business is mandated by URA to withhold 6% from you. For example, if I'm a consultant and I'm consulting for a given company, let's say your company, so you are mandated to withhold 6% in lieu of payment, part of my tax. Because at the end of the day, I should pay 30% tax on chargeable income or net income, okay? So when you withhold 6%, and finally at the end of the financial year, I file tax. For example, let's say you withhold to a tune of 10,000 Ugandan shillings, and I had to pay 30,000. So instead of paying 30,000, I pay 20. URA has already pre-taken that 10. But where is the danger? The danger is oftentimes, the profit margin on a given contract or business is very small. Smaller than the 6%, sometimes it's 2%. So URA has already eaten into the small margin that you should get. What do you do to be able to be exempted from this? URA needs to trust you that you will comply and be prudent in your reporting standards, because the government has allowed all businesses to run their financial statements and be transparent about their business operations. Unfortunately, most of us are not. Like we talked earlier and said, we are employing unskilled labor to do this. And some people intentionally just refuse to disclose, okay? But if you're on a journey and you want to be exempted from withholding tax, prepare your books of accounts. Make sure you're ready to be audited, because as soon as you put in a request for exemption, they come and look at your affairs. Have you been a faithful custodian? Can you now report your taxes in their totality? If then you can, they say, okay, now what about your liabilities? Have you paid your taxes for the last at least 3 years? So they launch an audit into your business for 3 years. And I say the burden of proof is with us. You explain, you submit evidence. They take you through a rigorous exercise. I have some companies on the withholding tax exemption list. Now, it's there, you can take it, but you have to be compliant. When you file your VAT, please pay it. There are also businessmen whom, when they are paid the entire invoice, the first call they will make is, my newcomer must arrive. I've seen that so many times, okay?
Yes.
But if you know, when I get an invoice of say 80 million paid, this percentage goes to the taxman, and URA has a mechanism of following affairs. Even if your payouts come in late, but they say, okay, when it came in late, actually they paid. And actually I've seen that some interests have been being waived owing to the longer late payment. Also, there are some special supplies to government agencies. The system has now put up a window where when you're invoicing, you can now select government supply because the payments delay a bit. But what are we saying? We are saying that you want to be exempted from withholding tax, but are you faithful to pay the taxes in their totality? Or you are the one to be chased and URA says, at least I don't lose it all. Let me first hold 6%. So it's very possible for you to get on the withholding tax exemption, but the criteria should be followed. The core is keep your records well, file your taxes right, and be compliant.
Beautiful. It's been a good conversation indeed. Your last word, and this time round to the taxman.
Yes, to the taxman, I really feel like we are not friendly in our collection. This side, I'm a consultant. I represent so many businesses, but I got a chance to interact with different officers. It's like we've been robotically placed to just indulge the client the wrong way. So I'm saying, what about we launch other means of collections, more friendlier? When you come in for a compliance advisory, actually advise. And you know, people are scared. A typical business man in Uganda, when they say you are a person, they say, how much do you have in the drawer? Let us give him, he goes away. What about we change the narrative? If we are really here for our country, let us enable the businesses, the complying business, okay, the trying businesses to comply. And then we try and draw the net wider.